You checked their Instagram before you even got out of bed this morning. A vacation you could not afford, a car you do not own, a kitchen that looks nothing like yours. And before your feet hit the floor, something in your chest tightened. Not sadness exactly, not anger, something older than both of those things. Something that has no clean name in modern language because it was wired into your nervous system long before language existed. You compare yourself to other people constantly. You know you should not. You have probably read articles about it. You have maybe told yourself to stop, but you cannot. And the reason you cannot is not a character flaw. It is not weakness. It is one of the most sophisticated survival tools your ancestors ever developed, running in a brain that was never designed for the world you actually live in. Here is what no one tells you about social comparison. It is not a bad habit. It is a biological imperative. And when you understand where it actually comes from, the tightness in your chest starts to make a very different kind of sense. Your brain is not comparing your wealth to other people's wealth because it is vain or jealous or broken. It is doing exactly what it evolved to do. The problem is not the software. It is the hardware running software built for a world that no longer exists. To understand why, you need to go back. Not 10 years, not 100. About 200,000 years, because that is where the circuitry lives. For the vast majority of human history, your ancestors did not live in cities. They did not scroll feeds. They did not commute past billboards. They lived in small bands of between 20 and 150 people. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar spent decades studying this. What he found was that the human brain evolved a social processing capacity calibrated to groups of roughly that size. That number is not random. It is the number of people your brain can genuinely track, their relationships, their status, their resources, their moods. It is now called Dunbar's number. In that world, knowing where you stood relative to others was not a vanity. It was survival intelligence. If the hunters in your band were coming back with more meat than usual, you needed to know. If a neighboring family had found a new water source, your brain needed to flag that. If someone in your group was accumulating more than their share of resources, that was a potential threat to your survival and the survival of your children. Comparison was not optional. It was the mechanism by which your ancestors assessed risk, identified alliance partners, and made decisions about where to invest their energy. The economist and social theorist Thorstein Veblen identified something important about this in 1899, though he framed it differently. He noticed that humans do not consume things simply because they need them. They consume in ways designed to signal position. He called it conspicuous consumption. But what Veblen was really identifying was the public expression of an ancient social monitoring system, the system that your brain runs every single day. Here is the part that changes everything. In your ancestors' world, the comparison never reached beyond the people you could actually see. You compared yourself to 50 people, maybe 150 on a good day. The richest person you would ever know lived within walking distance. The most successful hunter in your band was someone whose face you recognized. Your social comparison system had a ceiling, a biological upper limit imposed by the size of the groups humans were built to inhabit. Then something broke. Not suddenly. Gradually. Across centuries, but the break accelerated in a way no evolutionary process could keep up with. First came settled civilizations, cities, trade routes. Then came print media, then broadcast television, then the internet, then social media. And with each step, the comparison window blew open a little wider. Today, your brain, still running the same hardware from 200,000 years ago, is not comparing itself to 150 people. It is comparing itself to billions, not even real billions of people living real lives. It is comparing itself to the most curated, most optimized, most financially aspirational version of billions of people, packaged and delivered to a glass rectangle in your hand before you have swallowed your first coffee. The psychologist Leon Festinger formalized the mechanics of this in 1954. His social comparison theory proposed that human beings have a fundamental drive to evaluate their opinions and abilities by comparing them to others. When objective measures are not available, we use people around us as the benchmark. What Festinger could not have anticipated was what happens when the reference group expands from a village to the entire visible human population simultaneously. What happens is this: your threat detection system, which evolved to flag genuine social risks within a small band, never turns off, because the feed never ends. There is always someone richer. There is always someone further ahead. There is always someone whose kitchen, whose vacation, whose car, whose career trajectory makes yours look smaller by comparison. And your nervous system processes each of those signals the same way it processed a rival in your ancestral band who was accumulating too many resources. It fires. The economist Robert Frank spent years studying what he called positional goods, things whose value is entirely relative to what other people have. A house is not just shelter, it is a position. A salary is not just income, it is a rank. Frank found that the satisfaction people draw from positional goods depends almost entirely on how they compare to the people immediately around them, not on the absolute value of what they have. A person earning $80,000 surrounded by people earning $60,000 feels wealthier than a person earning $120,000 surrounded by people earning $200,000. The number is almost irrelevant. The comparison is everything. This is why more money does not fix the feeling. The feeling is not about money. It was never about money. It is about position. And position is a moving target by definition, because as soon as your position improves, the comparison group shifts. There is a term for this that you have probably heard but may not have fully absorbed: hedonic adaptation, the tendency for humans to return to a relatively stable level of well-being after major positive or negative life events. You get the raise. It feels good for a few months. Then it becomes the baseline, and the comparison engine, which has not taken a single day off, finds a new benchmark and starts the cycle again. Your ancestors did not experience hedonic adaptation the same way you do. Their comparison group was stable. The richest person in a band of 80 people is still a person you see every morning, who wakes up with the same cold and the same hunger and the same fears. The psychological distance between you and the most successful person you know was never designed to be the distance between you and a billionaire's highlight reel. But here is what makes this stranger still. The comparison is not random. It does not operate across all possible human beings equally. It sharpens around people who are similar to you in meaningful ways. Same age, same profession, same starting point, same neighborhood. Psychologists call this the similar other effect. You're far more emotionally activated by someone in your peer group achieving something than by a celebrity achieving the same thing. A friend buying a nicer house triggers something that a billionaire's yacht does not, because your ancient brain does not register a billionaire as a meaningful comparison. It registers your college roommate. This is not irrational. In an ancestral world, the people most similar to you were your most direct competitors for resources. Knowing their status, tracking their gains, was genuinely urgent information. Your nervous system did not evolve to be zen about your peer group's wins. It evolved to be deeply attentive to them. What this means for the world you live in right now is uncomfortable to say out loud. The platforms you use are not accidentally triggering this system. Social media companies have spent billions of dollars and hired thousands of engineers to understand exactly which content makes your nervous system fire. And they have found, reliably, repeatedly, across cultures and demographics, that social comparison content is among the most engaging material you can put in front of a human brain. Not because people are shallow, because the comparison drive is ancient, automatic, and almost impossible to override with willpower alone. You are not weak for feeling it. You are human. More precisely, you are 200,000 years of evolved social intelligence running in a world that was built last Tuesday by comparison. So what do you do with this? The research on this is more hopeful than the situation sounds. Sonia Lyubomirsky at the University of California, Riverside has spent decades studying the psychology of well-being and its relationship to comparison. What she and her collaborators have found is that the most consistent predictor of sustained well-being is not income, not status, not achievement. It is the intentional redirection of the comparison system. Not its elimination, because you cannot eliminate it. It's redirection. Comparing yourself to your past self rather than your parallel self. Comparing your real, unfiltered daily life to someone else's real, unfiltered daily life rather than their curated output. Choosing, deliberately and repeatedly, which reference group your brain uses as its benchmark. This is not a self-help mantra. It is a neurological reality. The comparison engine is always running. The only variable is the input you feed it. Your ancestors compared themselves to the 80 people they could see. Their comparison system had a ceiling. Yours does not, unless you build one deliberately. Tonight, when you scroll past someone's vacation or their promotion or their new car, something in your chest will tighten. You know that now for what it is. 200,000 years of survival intelligence firing at a glass screen. A system built to track a village, drowning in the entire world at once. The comparison never stops, but you get to choose more than you think what it is comparing you to.